All right. I need you to actually stay with me on this one. Not half listen, not scroll. Really just listen. California just removed the statute of limitations for childhood sexual abuse survivors. No deadline, no expiration, no, you waited too long. Now really think about that. Because for a lot of people, that one change would have meant everything. So here's the question. Why hasn't Utah done the same? Welcome back to Real Talk with Pink. This is not surface level conversation. This isn't easy. And it's definitely not comfortable. This is where we talk about the things people avoid, or minimize, or pretend are not still happening. And today we're talking about time. But not time passing. Time being used as a barrier. A line that decides whether someone gets justice or gets shut out completely. Now, I'm going to be real from the start. This is not just information for me. I'm not speaking on this from a distance. This is not just something I researched. This is something I live with every day. And I know a lot of you listening do too. So when I say the timeline does not work, I mean that. When I say the system was not built for survivors, I mean that. And when I say being told you were out of time hits differently when you already struggled to speak at all, I really mean that. This is personal. So let's break this down clearly. California changed the law so that survivors of childhood sexual abuse can file civil lawsuits whenever they are ready. No age cutoff, no legal countdown, no expiration date tied to trauma. That is not a small update. That is a complete shift in how the system treats survivors. Because before this, there was always a clock. A window of time where you were expected to come forward, and if you missed it, oh well, shit out of luck, your case was gone. Not because it didn't happen, not because it didn't matter, because the time ran out. California looked at that and said, that doesn't make sense. And they're right. So let's ask the real question. Why has Utah not done what California did? And the answer is not complicated. It's about consequences. Removing the statute of limitations for institutions opens the door to lawsuits that go back years, maybe decades. It means organizations have to answer for things they thought were long gone. It means financial liability, public exposure, reputation damage. That's a lot. And systems do not willingly take that on. Now layer in religion, because in Utah that matters a lot. Religious institutions are not just part of the culture here. They are the culture here. They shape it. They influence it. They are deeply embedded in the community. So when something happens inside that structure, there's even more pressure to protect it, to keep things quiet, to brush things under the rug, to handle things internally, and deadlines make that easier. Because again, if you can outlast the timeline, you never have to answer. That's a lot. This is bigger than law. This is about the message. For years, the message was, if you did not speak up in time, that's on you. Now the message is, we understand why you couldn't. That's huge. That shift alone changes everything. Because it moves the responsibility off the survivor and puts it back where it belongs. So let's talk about reality for a second. Trauma doesn't move in a straight line. It does not go from event to understanding to action. It fragments. It hides. It comes back in pieces. Sometimes you do not fully understand what happened to you until years later. Sometimes something small triggers it, and suddenly everything connects. Sometimes you spend years just trying to function without realizing why certain things feel off. So when the law says you have a deadline, it is expecting something that is not realistic. It is expecting survivors to process trauma on a schedule. And that has never been how this works. Now add silence into that. Because silence is not random. It's built. Especially in environments where authority is strong. Because a lot of survivors are not just dealing with trauma, they're dealing with pressure not to speak. Sometimes it's direct. Threats, manipulation, fear. Sometimes it's more subtle. Shame, guilt, being told you misunderstood, being told it was your fault, being told speaking up would destroy your family, your community, your faith, your sense of belonging. So you stay quiet. Not because you want to, but because you feel like you have to. And while all of that is happening, clock is still ticking. And here's the part people don't like to sit with. That deadline did not just hurt survivors. It protected systems. Institutions did not have to fix the problem. They just had to outlast it. Delay. Deny. Minimize. Discredit. And eventually, time runs out. Case closed. No accountability. That is not accidental. That is how the system worked. Because abuse in these environments is rarely just one person acting alone. It is often enabled, ignored, hidden, sometimes even protected. So, you can go after the individual, but not the system that allowed it to continue. You're not getting full accountability. You're getting a limited version. And that limitation protects the bigger picture. And California just removed that advantage. Now let's talk about Utah, because this is where the gap becomes real. Utah has made some changes. You can sue the individual abuser at any time, and that matters. But it is not the full picture. When it comes to institutions, there is still a deadline. Let me slow that down. You can go after the person, but not the system that allowed it. The system that may have known. The system that may have ignored it. Still gets protection through time. How is that right? So if you're not ready fast enough, they are no longer legally responsible. Wow. Again, limited accountability. And that limitation protects power. And I need to stay here for a second, because this part is not theoretical. When you're dealing with something like this, you're already questioning everything. Your memory, your interpretation, your reaction. You're already asking yourself if anyone will believe you, if it's worth saying anything, if it will make things worse. And then on top of that, there's a deadline. So by the time you're actually ready, you're told it's too late. Sorry about your luck. That does not just close a case. It reinforces that silence. So why had Utah not followed California? Because removing those limits comes with consequences, real ones. Legal exposure. Financial impact. public accountability. It opens the door to cases that go back years, maybe decades. It forces institutions to answer for things they thought were behind them. And systems do not give that up easily. And in Utah, you cannot ignore the influence of the religious institutions. Deeply connected to the culture here. They are the culture here. They not only shape the community, they shape the authority. They shape how people respond to situations like this. So when something happens, they protect it. Keep things quiet. Handle things internally. And wait. If they wait long enough, time runs out. And there's nothing left to answer for. It's not accountability. It's a fucking loophole. So what does it actually come down to? Control. Who has it and who doesn't? Because removing the statute of limitations shifts control. It takes it away from the institutions and gives it back to the survivors. And that's a big shift. One that not every system is ready to make. But here's what is changing anyway. People are speaking out. More openly, more consistently. Stories are not staying buried like the way they used to. And that creates pressure. And pressure creates change. Because once enough people start talking, the system cannot ignore it forever. So we come back to it. The question that keeps coming up. California made a move. They removed the deadline. They acknowledged reality. Why hasn't Utah? So the question is not just when, it's why not. This isn't just about law. It's about values. Do we build systems that understand trauma? Or do we force people to fit into timelines that were never realistic? Do we prioritize accountability? Or do we prioritize protecting institutions? These are real questions. And they're ones worth asking. California removed the clock. Utah has not. And that gap is where a lot of people are still stuck, myself included. So I'm going to leave you with this. The question that is not going to go away: when will Utah follow? This is Real Talk with Pink. If this episode hit you, sit with it. If it made you uncomfortable, ask yourself why. And if it made you think, do not ignore that. And if you are someone who has been carrying something like this quietly for years, know that you're not alone. Not even close. And just because the system may not have caught up yet, does not mean your story stopped mattering. I'll see you in the next one.